Hello, beautiful stars. Welcome to another episode of Matrix Living here at Stars of the Morning Light. I am Courtney, host of Stars of the Morning Light, and tonight we have John Sparks. He is up there in our beautiful state of Illinois. He is a massage therapist, a Reiki master teacher, and most of the subscribers here know our beloved Geza. This is his teacher, folks. John has also written a book that I do recommend everyone. I truly do. Whenever I teach Reiki, I recommend John's book, A Nature of Reiki, The Path of Inclusion by John David Sparks. All the links to maybe connect with John wherever you are will be in the description below. So thank you for letting me introduce you, John. How are you doing, my dear?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you. Very nice to be here with you.
Yes, I'm excited about this. Our dear friend Giza that we have connections through, he has been wanting us to talk for many years, and
Wow,
we're finally doing it. So
great.
that's wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
this is a Matrix Living episode, and the conversations go broad and far and back in and all inclusive in many ways. So I always ask every guest this first question, and then we kind of roll from there.
Okay.
And that question is there an instance, a memory, a moment in your life that you would share with us when your eyes kind of opened up or your mind kind of opened up to, whoa, there might be something going on in this world that we live in, this so-called world, whatever that may be? Would you share that instance with us?
Mm. Yeah. Can I expand it into two related incidents?
Oh,
Is
of
that okay?
course. We love
Okay.
that. Yes.
So I'm going to go way back. I'm one of the old hippies still around, So back in 1966, I won tickets from the local radio station to go see Herman's Hermits.
Oh, I love
And
it. I
I know,
love
right?
it.
Right. And the backup band was Eric Burden and the Animals. Well, I loved Eric Burden and the Animals, but I had never been to a live performance before. It was at a place called the Amphitheater here in Chicago. I went into the building and I was immediately struck by the diversity of the crowd. First of all, for Herman's Hermits, there was a million screaming girls in there, right? There's all
Mm.
about, you have to be kind of old to know who's Herman's Hermits are,
Yes,
right?
the subscribers here can definitely track John, so it's
Okay.
fine, and so can I. I even have their records.
Do
I
you? Oh
yes,
my
oh
God,
yeah,
that's
man,
hilarious.
yeah.
That's great. So Herman's Hermits on one hand. On the other hand, I was just learning how to play bass guitar a little bit back in those days, and Eric Burden and the Animal was the backup band, as I said. Well, the other half of the audience was a bunch of long-haired hippies with striped bell bottoms, hair down to their shoulders, and you could feel the energy division in the auditorium.
Mm,
And I went
right.
in there and I just kind of looked around in awe and I went, "Oh my God, what is this about?" And then Eric Burden came on and he commanded the stage like I didn't know music could command. He was so
Mm,
emotional. I was in awe. I was not expecting that. He just slammed that microphone stand down. He was on his knees. I mean, the band is playing their blues, and I was like, okay, oh wow. So, long story short, that was the beginning of a new world for me. At that moment, I said to
mm,
myself, I want to be in that world. That's the world I want to live in. Okay. Herman's Hermits, I don't even remember
okay.
except a bunch of screams. But Eric Burden, I remember distinctly.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to about 3 years later, I'm 16 now. I do my very first LSD trip. Okay. Now I am pure clinical LSD 25. It was still legal back then.
Wow.
That tells you how long ago it was, right?
Yeah.
Pure as the driven snow. And when I mean, there's nothing you can do if you've ever done LSD. There's absolutely nothing you can do except resist or let go. And I chose
Mm-hmm.
to let go. And the experience was phenomenal. It was multi-layered, three-dimensional geometric shapes. I almost had to swim my way through. It was
Mm.
sound. I didn't even know the sound of a guitar before. Everything was brand new. And I would have to say that instead of going, wow, that was a great high, when I came out of that trip, I said to myself, there's a whole new world right here. I didn't look at it as something out there. I looked at it as something
Mm.
right here that I had overlooked somehow. And I said, there's a whole new world right here that I want to explore. And that was probably those two incidences kind of relate together. And that changed my life. From there, it's just been onward and upward. Yeah.
Amazing.
Well,
Amazing.
yeah,
You know, because it was pure, like you said as
it
well.
was.
You know, that's no such thing anymore to that effect of. So, how did you, if you were able to see that,
Yeah.
do you feel like you're able to experience that now, even in your waking life, of richer colors, of different sounds? Like, is it still present for you?
If
And
I
if
allow
so,
myself, yes. Yes, if
okay.
I allow myself to be that relaxed and present, I can
Mm,
still at least go to the sound component of it. I don't, most of the time, I don't see the richness. I don't see three-dimensional geometric shapes floating around in front of me, but I am much more aware of, well, I don't know how else to put it, except for the depth of what's right here, right now. And there's a depth that I've discovered outside of LSD that is so beautiful that I don't need LSD to give me an experience of its beauty, if that makes sense.
yes, that makes sense to me because I'm a believer that all the different chemicals or different properties that people might use
Mm.
opens our eyes to the fact.
Yeah, yeah,
But we naturally are able to see that as well, or feel it and experience
right.
the depth that you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. That
Mhm.
we're actually more than capable within these human bodies to do it. So how did you go? How did that journey unfold of understanding now? No, there's a depth that we can enter, we can allow. How did that journey kind of unfold for you?
Well, you're going down memory lane here with me, but I told you I started to play bass guitar, and eventually I ended up making a living playing bass guitar for about 10 years. And I was in some bands out east, particularly North Carolina ways. And one of the bands collapsed, and I had no money, and I went out to live in the forest out there with three other people. And I was tripping as much as I could trip. I mean, I was
Mm,
high all the time. I didn't have an income, but somehow I managed to eat and survive. You know, it was an amazing experience because all I would do basically is go out into the forest, drop a hit of acid or smoke some pot and climb trees and, just listen to the river run or, I mean, I had nothing to do. Then I go back to the little shack that we lived in and play music. And that was my life for quite a while. So one day I'm out tripping with a couple of the other guys I'm with. There was two other guys and a woman and a baby actually. And I was out tripping and I can almost see that now. It was so beautiful. And I remember standing at the riverbank and one of them on either side of me, and they said, John, we love coming out here and getting high with you. We really do, but we're worried. And I said, really? What are you worried about? I said, well, you're doing this so much, you're gonna ruin your body. I said,
mm,
really? They said, there's a way you can get this high without the acid. I'm like, really?
Yeah,
Wow,
sign me
I
up.
want that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I said, what's that? And they said, yoga. I said, seriously, yoga? And I didn't have an understanding. Was not familiar with the word, uh,
Mm.
or the capacity with which yoga actually expands. So I remember just holding that word in the back of my mind and continuing on my journey. I eventually came across a book at a friend's house, and once I was out of the woods and all that, and trying to go back into normal life. There was a book on a bookshelf, and I was exploring the bookshelf, and the book was called Autobiography of a Yogi, and that was by Paramahansa Yogananda. I had that on my bookshelf for 5 years before I actually pulled it off and read it. And then
Oh,
once I
isn't that
read
how
it,
it goes?
isn't
Yeah.
it? I read
Yeah.
the book, I was mesmerized.
Mm.
And long story short, I've read that book 7 times now over the years. I studied Kriya Yoga for a long, long time. The problem, and there isn't really a problem, I love Yogananda and I love the path that he laid out, and I love the way that he tried to merge Christianity with Hinduism, and I love all of that to this day. But I never how can I say? I never achieved this ideal state that I felt was presented in the book, or
Oh,
presented by the organization. Like there was this goal that you had to reach of this thing we call enlightenment, right?
right.
And I was never able to reach it. And I remember I was still taking LSD for a while, and uh, of course, okay, meditate and get high, right? So
Right.
I'm laying out on the lawn one day and I'm looking at what I would call the magnetic grid around the earth. It's way up there and you can see these really thin lines. And I'm going, you know what? If I can get past that grid, I know I'll be free. I just know it, my
Mm.
mind will be expanded. I'll be where like this goal was beyond that grid. And so
Oh, wow.
I said, I'm going to take one more trip. And if I can get beyond that, great. And if I can't, I'm going to quit because now, I'm quite a bit older. I'm still dropping LSD and, still playing with
Yeah.
my body quite a bit, right?
Right.
So I dropped the acid. I looked up at the grid and I meditated as best I knew how, and I could not get beyond that grid. And so I quit.
Mm.
It was just that
Mm.
simple. I quit and I went on this deep spiritual path for a long time. And it took me, in all the ups and downs that you can go on. And eventually that led me to, life itself actually just led me to getting married. And I married an instant family. My wife already had a 4-year-old child at the time. She was pregnant when we got married, and he was born sick. Long, long stories. But anyway,
Yeah.
I had to kind of live in the real world, so to speak, at that time. And so I remember getting so disgruntled in my full-time job I had been at for 16 years now. I was Mr.
Mm.
Responsible now.
Yeah.
And I'd lived that life for 16 years, but I was desperate to find something deeper still. I knew that life held more. It's just, it was there inside. It was in my bones at this point. So my sister kept bugging me to take massage school. I didn't know a damn thing about massage therapy. I'd never had a massage in my life, but I finally got so disgruntled. And I was talking to a guitarist I was playing with at the same time. I said, Don, I don't know what to do. And I had this back and forth week after week. And finally he looks at me and he goes, John, God hates cowards. And I went,
Oh,
right?
that's a bold line, but
I
I
know,
like
right? I
it.
mean, he
Yeah.
obviously tired of hearing my drama,
Yeah.
should I, shouldn't I?
Yes.
So
Right.
so the next day I enrolled in massage school. And towards the end of that training, one of the ladies in the class said that she had been up to a spiritual retreat center up in Wisconsin, and it felt like she was floating outside of her body for about 45 minutes. She had
Yeah.
received a Reiki treatment. Did I know anything about Reiki? And I said, no, I never heard of it before. And so she said, well, there's a Reiki master coming to Indiana in 2 weeks. I'm going to take the class. Would you want to go? And I said, sure. So I took Reiki. I was lost. I had no idea what they were talking about in that class. It's like, oh, feel the warmth, feel this, do you see that? And I'm like, oh, you loonies. But but I kept at it because I felt when I was in the what they call the attunement process there, when I was being attuned to the energy, I remember having a memory, like an ancient memory of Egypt, being in the same kind of a situation. And in fact, there were three people in the class that I knew from ancient Egypt. Now, this is not my normal kind of thing. I don't consider myself a psychic or anything like this of the sort. So to have that memory and that realization, I go, I've done this before. I've done this before.
Mm.
And so that, along with one other incident, kept me going to the place where I finally detoxed my body enough. And one day, while I'm at my full-time job, I'm standing behind the counter doing this. Can you see my hands?
Yeah, yeah.
Doing this, and all of a sudden it's like the floodgates opened in the palms of my
Mm.
hands, and I felt this amazing, beautiful, warm, radiant, light energy coming, and I'm just like playing with this energy ball and I'm bathing myself in it. I was hooked. That's all there
There you
was to it. I was
go.
hooked. So I continued. I took it nice and slow because I have lots of questions. I don't just take things because people say it. 4 years later, I took the Reiki Master training out in, this is another whole story you might or may not want to get to, but out at Estes Park, Colorado, and the training was held at the Stanley Hotel, which if I was not familiar with the Stanley at all, I didn't know anything about it, but it turns out that that was the place where Stephen King wrote The Shining, right?
Yeah, there's lots
It
of
was
reasons
haunted as all
why.
hell, right? I mean, so
Oh, interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So
Maybe it was cheap for the curriculum or the workshop for them to rent or something. Like, hey, let's do all this spiritual stuff here.
yeah, yeah, right,
Oh,
right.
wild, man.
Yeah, it was wild, okay. And a lot of interesting experiences there, which I'll spare you unless you pin me down. But long story short is once I got out of there and I there was a friend of mine, the lady who invited me to Reiki class to begin with, now had her own space of healing with a chiropractor, and she said, "Hey, would you like to come teach Reiki?" And well, sure, but you have to remember at that time, there were no Reiki manuals for a Reiki master class. There was nothing. All I had were notes from all my classes and all my questions, and I had it all laid out on the
Oh,
floor in my study. And for 2 months, I just looked at all my notes. How am I going to put this together? How am I going to put that together? And finally, the day of class came. I thought I was just going to throw up. I thought I was just going to throw up, refund everybody their money, say, I can't do this. And I opened my mouth because obviously I didn't. And words started flowing. And then the next thing I knew, after 2 days, I was driving home and I knew my life had just changed dramatically. I knew that that was my life. And so I've been mm, on that journey really ever since. I opened that same year. Was it that year? No, maybe a year or two later. I opened the doors of Insight Awareness in 1994, and I started working full time as a massage therapist and Reiki practitioner. And the moment that I did that, all these people that were hiding out in the woodworks in the town that
mm.
I'm at started coming. Can I teach a class there? Can I do this there? Can I do that? The psychotherapists, I mean, professionals that were just kind of like, they didn't want to be known out there, but now there was a space for them. And so it just started growing. And I held that business up until 2019, from 1994 to 2019, and now I'm soloed. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that's the story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone listening, I am holding his book up again. Please consider getting John's book because it's not just Reiki as what I would say generically people think of Reiki. When he talks about depth, the path to inclusion, please consider getting it and reading it because it
Mm,
might open up people's eyes, John, because I think we're living, you told such a wonderful story, by the way, and
thank
it's
you.
making me think of the comparison of yesteryear to today that even with Reiki, it's so oversaturated. In my opinion, you hear about it, you see it everywhere. You can get training online real quick in 50 minutes. Like, I mean, it's that I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't. It doesn't appear to me that people are taking it to the depths and the expansion that it offers. And
I would
I
agree with
think
you.
you did. I mean, I read your book and I have heard enough from Geza about you that going back to like doing the LSD and it's like, yeah, you can there's definitely chemicals out there that will induce this, but then there's also this. There's
Mhm.
also this natural energy that we can tap into within our bodies, our minds, our spirit, what have you, that can also take you on the most wondrous journeys.
Yeah.
Um, can you speak a bit about that? I mean, kind of like what's the comparison, I guess, of,
Mhm.
the chemical induced compared to the natural induced?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to run back just a little bit about, something you said, and that's to say that the journey of Reiki is not finished for me. I probably will, I hesitate in even calling it Reiki anymore because of
Mm-hmm.
what you've already said, uh, in that it's become such a technique that people miss in general, not everybody, but in general, people miss the essence, the nature of
Mm-hmm.
it. The nature of that energy is light and love. And everybody knows it, but we are so conditioned to live in our heads that we look at it more and more as a technique. I do Reiki versus I am the energy of light and love. Every
Yeah.
bit of the life force energy in every cell in my body is inundated with the Reiki energy. There's no separation. So we are Reiki energy. And if
Mm-hmm.
you allow yourself to go into that instead of the techniques, if you allow your heart to speak instead of the techniques, then it'll take you on an endless, infinite journey. And you ask what the main difference is. And I would say the difference in the depth now is that in the past, that was largely based in a body mind experience, and now it's based in the heart.
Mm.
That's the best way I know how to say
Mm.
it. Now the
No,
depth comes from looking when people come into my practice now and they want a treatment on something. I hear this all the time, and it's true. I don't see your problems. I don't. I see a beautiful soul.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I see a beautiful soul who's on a journey, some more than others, some who are trying so hard and they can't see how beautiful they are. And I just want to hug them and go, my God, don't you see how beautiful you are? But nobody does because we've all been taught to live up here, which is
Yeah.
the whole, relative word to the matrix, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, because the matrix is a conditioned way of life. And LSD broke me out of it, but following this journey, all the different components of it put together between, Yogananda and Byron Katie and Michael Singer and on the stories go over the years. Now, it's all kind of just coming together in this beautiful, beautiful way that has a depth that there's just no way to conceive before. And I'm just in awe every day. I just love life. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I'm hearing the very big difference in, okay, let me break out of this matrix, out of this system. If I can get past this grid, if I
Right.
can just get past this grid into years of application that has developed into the gratitude and the joy of being, oh no, this grid is awesome. This grid can be a good time if we allow it. If we allow to live through our heart space, you
Can be.
know?
And it can also be a grid that's transcended because that grid is actually my own mm, concept of limitation. So,
Exactly.
do we have any limitation? Do we really? Is there anywhere you've ever been that you aren't there? Is there
Mm-hmm.
any time that you can ever be? I mean, you can't go to the past. You can only think about the past. You can only think about the future, but the only real time is now because you think about the past now, you think about the future now, and if you just allow that, that's when you go past the grid. There's no, there's no, there's no boundaries anywhere.
Oh, beloved John, thank you for saying that because the listeners here have actually heard me talk about this because I, I guess maybe because I'm a bit my character, my personality is a little assertive. So I'll
Mhm.
kind of describe it a little bit differently of like,
Yeah, of
hey,
course.
I'm in the now all the time. I
Yeah.
am that Reiki living meditation. I'm in the now, regardless if my mind's in the past or in the future. But my
Mhm.
presentation can tend to be a bit more assertive.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and I agree with you. I'm
Yeah.
not just my mind. I am my entire self. So wherever I am in the now.
Well, yeah. And doesn't it even come down just a little past that? I mean, we have to have language to express ourselves in this three-dimensional reality. But the most common thing that we share as humans is those very first two words, which I don't know how in depth we can go with this, but really, it's the I am.
Yes.
I mean, that's it.
Yes.
I mean, the rest is just a story. The I am is the only real truth because you are. The rest is a story of your truth.
Hmm.
All we know is the right here, right now of that I am. And we can interpret that any way according to our conditioning by this culture, this society, that society, parents, everybody, it all figures into our matrix, right? But you want to break through that grid, you want to break through all that stuff. I mean, Ram Dass, I mean, that was talk about a perfect book. The book title, Ram Dass, Be Here Now. That's the perfect book title. Be,
Hmm.
be as in beingness,
Yes.
here as in the only time that there is that isn't a time at all, and now is the same thing. It's just a reiteration of the same thing. Be here now. That's it. That's all he
Yes.
learned while he was over in India. This beautiful guru that he studied under. I mean, for all of the so-called powers that he had, it was all because he was present with life right here, right
Right.
now. And
Right.
that's the journey that I'll always be on, hopefully, at least during this life. We'll see. Yeah.
Yes. I fully agree. Most of the listeners here as well. I am a big fan of I am. A very big fan of I am.
Yeah.
To the point I'll state it all the time. I am the great I am. I have no problem saying that. And
Yeah, good. You're a rare
yeah.
soul because normally well, if you go out and you say, I am God, you're gonna, likely be crucified, right? But
Yes, yes.
right.
I'm especially I live in North Georgia now, so it's um but a good thing I might have a little bit of assertiveness to me, but in
Yeah,
love.
yeah.
Um
Well, that'd be
uh
easier to say. I am love. They would understand that much better.
yes, they would understand that better. They would. Um I'm hearing too, you bring up these limitations and we talk about the matrix living as in how do we operate here? Give me your ideas, right? And this is to just open up discussions. And when you talked about those limitations there of these constructs, I'm hearing, and even the people that might, there's a lot of people that still struggle with the now. But I tend to, in my opinion, observe that as it's because they're in some form of self judgment. Like you and me, we're talking right now. But let's say your mind goes and wanders as we're talking to the past. Their self judgment tells them they're not in the now. But yet we're having a full conversation.
Wait, wait, wait,
So
wait. I'm not sure I follow you. Can you go back?
I think a lot of people's self judgments is
Mhm.
those limitations that you were referencing to. Even in the essence of, I think a lot of people they use self judgment in regards to, oh, I'm not successful in the being in the now. I'm not successful in breaking out of this matrix. I'm not successful in, X, Y, and Z, whatever the spiritual aspect may be, or the higher conscious aspect may be.
Okay. All right.
And I think it's because either they're still holding it up to some kind of standard that may or may not be accurate,
Oh, that's
or
interesting.
it's some kind of self judgment, as in, and that's why I gave that example as like you and I are sitting here having this conversation, and maybe you might have trailed off and had a great memory in your mind. Same, I might
Yeah.
have as well. But
Right.
that does not mean that I'm not in the moment engaged with you.
Hmm.
The only thing that would tell me that I'm not is if I had judgment of myself.
I understand. I understand. I'm not sure that I would limit it to that, but I understand what
Yeah.
you're saying. Um, our conditioning is so deep that,
Yes.
the moment that we're born and, mom or dad takes you to the mirror and says, see that? That's Courtney. That's Courtney. The moment that we identify with this body as being who we are, separation begins. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if that separation never happened, now would be much much more relatable because we wouldn't be these so I'm going to just jump ship for a moment. I really believe at this moment, along with what you're saying, because self-judgment is a part of it, but the biggest problem that humanity, us living in this seeming matrix that we're in now, um, is that we believe that we're separate.
I fully
The
agree, John.
moment, yeah, the moment that and it's been taught to us from the moment we were born. I mean, before you were given that name and before you started collecting a history under that name, what were you? You were just present, like your dog or your cat, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Except that
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't a dog or a cat. You had other thinking facilities and feeling facilities and all that. But the separation, if we could understand that consciousness itself is what never leaves. It's what's never separate. But the human body it's born, it's going to die, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so I guess the question comes back to the inevitable. We're talking about I am, but I am isn't a who. I am is
Mm-hmm.
the isness of it. There is no
Right.
who. There's a temporary identity, but we think this is the real world. This this is what's created the matrix, right? So as long as we continue to believe in this solidity as being solid, and it's proven more and more every day by, things like quantum physics, that you and I will never even touch each other. There's electromagnetic fields that are repelling each other, but there's a sensation. There's the life force energy
Yes.
that's emanating through that's that's even more fine than any so-called atomic structure. There's no name or way. That's why we can know. mm, that's why we can know beyond the brain.
Yes. Yes. John, I'm actually in full agreement with you. It is hard to articulate that to others. I am in full agreement with you, and I think that is, for me personally, I think that that is the root cause to any and all, maybe,
Yeah,
I don't know what we experience,
yeah,
is that idea of separation that is,
yeah.
like you were saying, programmed in. I think for me personally, how we get to understanding, experiencing, and fully standing within the wisdom that there is no separation, for me, I think it starts with laying down the judgments of self and others. Because it's the ultimate judgment. It's the only
Well, as,
thing
as long as you
that
have
is
a self,
present. Yes, it's the only right. So, and it continuously, I'm going to judge myself. I'm going to judge others. I'm going to judge, all the red tape in this world. That's
sure.
for, because this is a part of the programming. And for me, I think it is because I'll say it a million times. There is no separation. I experience it. That's how I live. And that's how I truly live. That's how I can say I am that I am because I am the all, right? I'm one, right? And
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
right.
But it took years upon years upon years of identifying, oh, I'm judging myself, I'm judging others, I'm participating in the land of judgment,
Mm-hmm.
in that separation, in that division. I'm participating within myself of it
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
fully laying that down with many different techniques and practices and what have you, and awareness funneling in to be able to not just acknowledge the one, but to be in a constant flow and communication as the one.
Hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. I
And
think you arrived there a little differently than I did.
okay,
And
so
I don't
how
want to
did
say,
you,
I don't even
John?
want to say that
Yes.
there's an arrival because there
Yes.
isn't. Always an open
Right.
door,
Right.
and there's
Right.
no end to it. But for me, yeah, I followed you a lot better for that. Thank you for that explanation.
Yes,
Uh,
and John, as you said before you continue, we are trying to use common language to
mm,
describe almost, I mean, undescribable. So but please share and describe in whichever way that you choose to
wow.
try to share that aspect of yourself.
Well, that's the beauty of this so-called individuality is that we each have, and go back to Ram Dass for a moment. My absolute favorite saying is that we're all just here walking each other home.
Yeah.
And that's the God's truth, no
Yep.
pun intended.
Yep.
That's it.
We're
We're
all
all
walking the
here.
awakening. Yep. We're all
Yeah.
walking the awakening together.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
But
love
we,
it.
but we, well, but we all think that we are these separate beings, and really, there's only one being of which
Hmm.
we all are a part of. So the moment that we let go of the identity that this brain is consciousness, rather than this brain is a tuner for consciousness, you know, then and we lose the association as much as we can. We still have to identify and work in this working world, but that's all fine
Hmm.
and dandy. But as you said, the awareness that behind all that, there is just presence.
Hmm.
There's just you as I am.
Hmm.
To carry that through as the common thread, that I think is the only way that we're going to really break ultimately. I mean, we can create new laws, we can do all kinds of things to help people get along together better. Yeah, yeah, I know. I mean, every time you make a law, you got to have a new one that somebody's going to break it and on and on.
Yeah, all of
But
it.
we
Yeah.
can temporarily put it on hold through these laws and discussions, but ultimately I believe that humankind has to realize that it's just a small fragment of the eternal consciousness of the all that is, and that's our commonality. Our
Hmm.
commonality is this beautiful, well, I'm going to go back to the light and love in motion. And we get to experience and express that in whatever way to help walk each other back home. And so
Yeah.
for me, breaking down the idea that there's a human here help me understand that the judgment to relate it to your
Yeah.
way of
Yeah.
looking at it help me understand that there's no human here really uh, then what is this self that's judging what
Hmm.
is that? Well, I mean, it's an identity of history. It's an identity of thought. It's the feeling of emotions that we haven't processed. It's just a bunch of thoughts, really. It's just
Hmm.
a bunch of jumbled up thoughts that we have given a name, and now that we think that's who we are. But really, is it?
Hmm.
That's the
Did
journey.
you start, John, did you start with like just observing your thoughts? Like
Absolutely.
yeah, just observing your thoughts
Yeah.
of, okay, it's a thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah.
thinking it was, a part of you. It's just a thought.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
observing it. Yeah,
Mhm.
how did you come to these, because everyone that does, as you said, arrive, which there's, we're using common language. How did you kind of go through that? How did you arrive to really adopting and understanding and standing in the one? How did you get there?
Well, I would argue with you that I'm always in the one, even though I know that technically you can be no place else. My brain doesn't always
Yes.
register
Amen,
there,
brother, right?
okay?
Yeah, I get you.
Uh, that said, it's just the continuing ongoing journey of, well, thank goodness for some of the technology that we have, because there's some beautiful teachers that are having podcasts and YouTubes available to us that are bringing new wisdom. And for some reason, I was logging on one day just looking for something that was stimulating to me a little differently, and I ran across this guy named Muji. Are you familiar with Muji?
Yes, yes.
So Muji, he was all about just observing your thoughts. And then, so the next time I went to meditate, my meditation wasn't trying to hold this state or that state. It was just observing the insanity that's going on up there. It's like, oh my God, it's a three-ring circus going on up there. And at that moment, at that moment, I knew that there was something bigger than my thoughts because I was the observer of them.
Mm,
Yeah. So,
yes.
so it's just kind of
Lovely.
continued from there. Yeah. Yeah, and then
That's
there's other
lovely.
non-dual teachers out there now that I really enjoy, but uh, when I write my next Reiki book, Courtney, it's
Yes,
going
sir.
to be it's going to be much more. I called the last one a path of inclusion. This one's going to be much more inclusive, for sure.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing excellent, wonderful stuff. So, beloved stars, make sure to give this a thumbs out so the algorithms can introduce John to others. And remember, all of his info is in the description below. John, I'm hearing so many beautiful things, and I fully now understand why Gazen wanted us to start
Thank you.
communicating, because I'll say very similar things to Geza in whatever my language may be, and
Yeah.
he's always, I know, Courtney, I know. John said that too. I know, Courtney.
That's
With
funny.
the this entire time when I was listening to you, I was also thinking of like ancient surf type or Sharif surf. I can't think of the term right now for some reason, but like Rumi, when he
Uh,
wrote, um, you're not just a drop of water.
yeah,
You're a drop in the ocean.
right.
But for me, it's also he taught then you had to dissolve the drop in order to see the ocean.
Hmm.
And it is
Yeah,
that concept of, dissolving oneself.
yeah.
And for me personally, because I'm more into ancient literature, teachers,
Mhm.
ancient stuff, for me, there's so many of them, the masters, even, from the Vedas to the masters to all of them, that all said that at
Mhm.
some point you're going to have to dissolve oneself. Or St. Francis said, die unto oneself. It's all the same thing, as in laying down that kind of that illusion that is you,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And that is an aspect when we talk about this matrix living that I do humbly believe that if more of us, I don't know, gave ourselves permission to even experience that for a little while, or whatever it may be, just to experience it for a little while, that, you know, dissolve oneself, that just getting a taste of it would enter into wanting to do that more and more. And the more that someone has a sense of it,
Mhm.
that attaches them to that there is no separation, right? That opens them up, the expansion of no separation.
Right, right,
I think that
right.
that is how, on an individual level, we change the collective level.
I would agree.
That's personally, that's what because how you said, like with the laws and stuff, yeah, you and I both understand that. And that's, you know, case Ras Ra here, there, everywhere. It's never actually really done the full. magnitude of what I believe humans are capable of.
Oh,
I think we're
absolutely.
capable of amazing. The whole new earth that people love to talk about and dream about. Well, it starts with the person. It starts with the
Right.
person, living their life, making the choices to create that new earth. And so
Absolutely.
I that was a whole lot for me to get to. For you, John, where do choices fit into this?
Where do choices fit into this? Well, you know, as part of the innate intelligence that we are, uh, we, in a sense, create the choices for ourselves. If we can, if there's even a self there to call a self. Now we're really getting into language
Yeah, it's
again.
okay. Yeah, it's okay.
But
Yeah.
because we've decided to experience a three-dimensional reality with only five senses, let's face it, I mean, it's a big experiment to take infinite consciousness, which can't even be comprehended, and then narrow it down to this little band of three dimensions, and then put five senses that aren't even fully developed inside of that. I mean,
How exciting. It
I
sounds so
know, right?
exciting to me.
I know, right? So we go, okay, so let's just take this infinite consciousness and see what it's capable of. So when you say what humans are capable of, I don't think there's a limit.
Yeah,
We haven't even
exactly. Yeah.
tapped, we haven't even touched the limits of who, we haven't even touched the capacity of being human, much less beyond human,
Mm.
what they call
Mm-hmm.
somebody might call superhuman.
Right.
So, what was your question again? How do we get beyond
How
that?
do how for you, where does the concept of choice play into
Oh, the
this?
concept of
For
choice.
just the average Joe out there that might be listening, it's like, because for me, maybe it's because I know my listeners, or maybe it's just my approach to things of, uh, okay, this is where I'm coming from, and everybody's gonna be like, oh, Courtney, um, I don't really believe in this concept of like life lessons.
Okay.
Not because we don't learn things. I mean, we do, right? We
Mm,
start here as a little baby. We learn a lot of things. But
mm,
I rather try to move the terminology of life lessons as if things just happen to us, or we got to go through all this crap and garbage all the time, that kind of thing, into choice.
yeah.
So even though Young might have spoke about our choices are limited, by what is being presented. See, I don't necessarily agree with that because I've witnessed plenty of people. You've even kind of demonstrated and talked about it today of how by the human free will, the choice that we have, we could spend countless of decades turning right, and wake up one day and say, I'm going left.
Mhm.
And I've witnessed it over and over again. That for me, I think if people knew the power of choice that they have, and took authority of it within themselves, I guess you would say, to really utilize it and step into it, the power of choice, I think that would start so many of like the lovely journey that you laid out.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
lot of people would go,
So,
man, how can I do that?
well, I would say this about choice. Going back to shrinking infinite consciousness into three dimensions and five senses, there comes a point in each person's life where you intuitively know anyway, you just don't always admit it. You intuitively know that you're more than this. And at some point through your own suffering, because this is, let's face it, infinite consciousness is is kind of like playing a game with itself. And at some point through
It's
your own
all,
suffering,
yeah.
you go, okay, you know what? I'm tired of being this conditioned little mm, self that is judging all the time and unhappy.
Hmm.
And how do I know that I'm unhappy? Because if I didn't have peace at my core, there would be nothing to compare it to. So I know that if I'm having struggles, that there has to be something I'm struggling from, and that from is the core of peace that exists within us. And when we get tired, does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Keep going. Yeah.
So if anytime that you're having an issue, it's because you're not in alignment with that core, that truth of who you are. And so at some point, you just get tired enough and you go, you know what? There is no answer out here. I've got to find a different way. And then you find a way because you've
Yeah.
decided to turn left instead of right, because you want
Exactly.
to realign with the truth of who you are. And the truth of who you are, again, I hate to be redundant, is light and love in motion. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. And you know that. And that's how come you can get, all wrapped up in, disgruntled about they shouldn't do this, they shouldn't do that, I shouldn't do this, I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't do that. We have all these judgments based upon an inner knowledge that we refuse to acknowledge that our core is light and love. And that's the only way that we would know that we aren't that we have problems is because we have something to measure it against. And that's the whole three-dimensional reality component. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. I think it very much makes sense.
You just gotta
Wow,
suffer enough.
John.
I don't know what to say, you know?
Yeah, no, it's
Right?
beautiful. It's
Yeah.
absolutely, that's why I love having these conversations because I do often find most of us are we're saying the same stuff. We're just
Mhm.
saying it differently, and then when the conversation happens, it everybody's going to pick up on different things. And
Right.
that's what this is for. It's for whoever's listening, whatever they pick up on, for them to take with them and say, yeah,
Well,
that's what
thank you.
resonates with
Thank you
me.
for this platform to do
Yeah.
that. I really appreciate it. Thank
Yes, yes. And
you.
John, when you write that other book, if you start your own podcast, which a little birdie told me you've been thinking about,
I have.
um, we'll definitely have you back on so we can promote that. And
Okay.
beautiful stars, give a big hands up to John over here who was so gracious to allow us to talk to him about, well, matrix living, how everybody's living and how everybody's doing, and his story is wonderful, beloved.
Mm.
So thank you, John. Is there anything you would like to sound off on as we say goodnight to everyone?
Probably nothing that anybody hasn't heard a million times. I would just say, mm, open your heart and love because it's never ending and you'll never be disappointed. Just expressing that's the truth of who you are. That's it.
Mm, I will take that with me. Thank you,
Yeah,
John.
thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much for
everyone.
having me. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you on the flip side here at Stars of the Morning Light. Good night, everyone.